that are much lower than what they would pay absent the Chinese trade deficits and their willingness to finance them. Interestingly, I thought when I heard the news about Cohen resigning as the chief economic advisor, and of course Trump is immediately saying, "Oh, we're going to get somebody great. I'm going to appoint another economic advisor who's going to give me great advice." I mean, he wants a yes man, right? He doesn't want an economic advisor that's going to give him advice. He wants somebody that's going to rubber stamp his agenda. But he has an entire council of economic advisors supposedly giving him advice. And people might think that this was always the case, that presidents were always getting the benefit of, a staff of economic advisors. That's not true. We didn't even have a council of economic advisors until 1946. The Second World War was over, and we created the economic advisors. I mean, maybe because the government had so much money because of the victory tax that they never repealed, they figured they'd blow some of it on a bunch of economists. But I think it's a complete waste. I mean, America made it to 1946 without any economic advisors. Well, and we had a much stronger economy, right? We went through the Industrial Revolution. We absorbed, tens of millions of immigrants, right, coming from all over the world. We had a massive expansion. We had a transformation from an agrarian to an industrial economy without any economic advice, right? The president didn't talk to economists. There was no economist on the federal payroll. I mean, there was a secretary of the Treasury. I mean, he had that, but he wasn't there to give him economic advice. He was there to, kind of deal with the Treasury, the budget, right? Taxes, revenue, stuff like that. I mean, the economy ran itself. I mean, that was the whole idea. We don't want the government micromanaging the economy, so why do they need economists? What's the point, right? This is not central planning. This isn't the Soviet Union, right? We want a free market. We don't want the government trying to figure out what the economy is going to do and then try to base policy on what they think is going to happen in the economy or what they think will help the economy. We want the government to be completely out of the economy. That's why there's no provision in the Constitution for any kind of economists. That's why it took so long before we were dumb enough to even hire any of these clowns. Now, I have no idea how many hundreds or thousands of people who have economists in their title work for the government, right? Not just for the president and his council of economic advisors, but we have all these agencies and departments that have all kinds of economists. Doing what? Doing absolutely nothing. We became the world's wealthiest creditor nation with no economists. Zero economists. Now we've got all these economists, and it's a disaster. I mean, haven't any of these economists noticed, what a mess the U.S. economy is? How massively the U.S. economy has imploded? How we've gone from the biggest creditor to the biggest debtor? I mean, Trump wants to point to all these trade deficits, which are symptomatic of the problem. They're not the disease, they're the symptom, which is why tariffs, which are aimed at the symptom, are not going to cure the disease. But we developed all these deficits with all these economists giving us advice. I mean, didn't any of them notice these massive deficits and have any problem with it? Look, you've got this guy Cohen, he's resigning because of the tariffs. What about the budget deal? What about the tax cuts that are unfunded? What about raising government spending while you're reducing your tax revenue? Why not resign over that? That is reckless, irresponsible policy. So it's just over the tariffs. But all these economists have allowed the U.S. economy to implode. They haven't noticed all the warning signs as we have hollowed out our industry and have loaded the economy with debt, right, and consumption, and we've had this bloated government. In fact, that's really what the job of all these economists are. They are yes men. They are basically ministers of propaganda. They're not there to help the economy. They're there to justify government policy by trying to pretend that this is about helping the economy, or trying to pretend that some new program or some new regulation is going to make the economy better. This is all cover. This is all a smokescreen for government to get bigger and bigger and to reach into your pocket to buy votes, to sustain their own fiefdom within the government, to maintain their power base and to keep government getting bigger. They hire these economists to justify what they want to do. But personally, I think that everybody who works for the federal government that has the word economist in their title should just be fired. We don't need them. It is a waste of money. None of these guys really understand economics anyway. They all went to some liberal school and they learned all this Keynesian nonsense. They're doing more harm than good, right? So just get rid of them. So the fact that this guy has resigned, Cohen has resigned, great. We don't need to appoint somebody to replace him. We should just basically ask for all the other resignations, or not just ask for the resignations. Let's just fire them. Hey, now speaking about trade, we got some trade numbers that came out today. Another